What is going on, guys? This is the first ZJ Motovlogs going into Boston. Pretty exciting shit. Pretty exciting shit indeed, my friends. So yeah, as most of you guys know, I work overnight. So I am heading into work now. Just picked up the bike today also. Rode it back from Rhode Island. I planned on recording some video from the ride back, but then I just was kind of like, you know what? I haven't gotten to ride at all. Didn't want to really make a video. I just wanted to relax and enjoy the ride. So that's what I did. That is what I did, guys. But now I wanted to put a video out tomorrow, so I'm recording one now. And what I wanted to talk about on this ride was, first off, what's going to happen from here on out with the channel. So some of you who have been around since the beginning, and you were around whenever I had Sandy and I uploaded regularly. My plan now is that I will upload every Tuesday and Thursday. It used to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I also had a whole hell of a lot more time and a lot more opportunity to ride. So now we're going to be switching to a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. Starting tomorrow, or today, whenever you guys are watching this, I will be uploading videos Tuesday, Thursday at 5 p.m. I'm going to try 5 p.m. Before, when I had Sandy, it was always Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I would upload the video at 7 a.m. Every day at 7 a.m. it would go live. So we're going to try something a little different. We're going to go Tuesday, Thursday at 5 p.m. Now I'm going to go with 5 p.m. for the first probably 2 weeks. After that, I will kind of reevaluate, see what the difference is in its pickup from 5 p.m. and 7 a.m. and I'll make a decision based upon the results of that then to what I'm going to stick with. If I'm going to stick with 7 a.m. or if I'm going to stick with 5. So that's that. And yeah, I recorded this last night. You guys are watching it now on Tuesday at after 5 p.m. Other news. We have a snowstorm coming on Thursday. Of fucking course. So don't know if I'm going to be able to ride much. But the other thing that I want to talk about, which is really going to be the focal point of this video, is the comparison between my 2003 CBR 600 and this 2005 Kawasaki Ninja 636. So first off, let me begin this by saying that both of these bikes are absolutely amazing bikes. Like, absolutely amazing. They do everything great, and I don't have a single gripe about either one. I like different things about each bike more than the others, but overall, they're both amazing bikes. So just get that out of the way. I'm not going to sit here and scream Honda till I die or Kawasaki till I die, because honestly, I would own either one. And to be brutally honest, these are probably the only bikes that I would own. I don't ever see myself ever buying a Yamaha, and I could tell you right now, I will never buy a Suzuki. No offense to you guys that ride them, but just not for me. So the differences between the two bikes. Obviously, if you're somewhat well-versed when it comes to motorcycles, you know that 636 means that this bike has an extra 36 cc's as opposed to your standard, well, I guess 37, as opposed to your standard 599 cc inline 4-cylinder engine. So it's got the extra 36 cc's, and what that really does is you notice it from the get-go. You notice it right off the bat because you have a lot more low-end torque. My CBR, obviously it got off the line just fine. There were no issues, but you don't really notice how much the other inline 4-cylinder bikes really, I don't really want to say suffer, but at the same time I don't want to say that there's no issues with them. But basically, there's a lot more low-end grunt to these bikes. A lot more low-end grunt. You feel it kind of push you off the line a lot quicker. It tries to pull you back a lot sooner on the bike. Like my CBR, which it's still a lot like this bike as well. When I was riding on the highway today, you get the bike above 11,000, 10,000, 11,000 RPM, it still wants to rip your arms off. Like that's no doubt. All of these inline 4-cylinder 600cc motorcycles, you get up above about 10 to 11,000 RPM, and that's really when the bike just wakes up. And that's really when it starts screaming, and you feel it pulling on your arms, trying to just rip you off the bike. And to be honest, what I noticed, obviously I haven't rode this near as much as I rode my CBR. I'm not near as comfortable on it as I was on my CBR. But what I did notice from the ride home today is this bike still does that, but surprisingly, even with the extra 36 cc's, it didn't feel as extreme as my CBR did. The CBR, I got that bitch up above 10, 11,000 RPM, and it literally was like throwing water on somebody that was asleep. It just instantly just popped and just flew. This bike, a lot similar to that. It's very similar, but it's not as exaggerated as the CBR was. It still wants to rip you off, but it's not that violent, just holy shit. I mean, like I said, obviously I rode the CBR a lot more. I really haven't gotten to put this bike through its paces, but from what I've seen early on, the CBR has a little bit more life to it once it gets up in the rev range than this one does. But on the flip side, this bike has a lot more life to it down in the low rev range. So you get a lot more torque. Aside from that, honestly, my CBR felt a lot like more streamlined. It was much thinner than this bike. But it's not to the point where it's like, holy crap, this bike is fat. It's not anywhere near that. It's more, to me, it's more of the aesthetics of the bike. It's the way things are rounded. My CBR had a lot more sharp edges. This bike is more rounded and more streamlined. So that's the first thing I noticed when I first got on it in my first ride. I was like, wow, this thing, it just felt so much wider. But the crazy part is, this bike is actually lighter than my CBR was, but it feels so much bigger. And I think that's the thing that really tripped me out whenever I first started riding it, was just when you look at it, you're like, that bike has to weigh more. But as soon as you start riding it, you're like, hey, it feels like I can flick it a little bit more. It feels like I can play with it a little bit more. So as far as the feel of it, that's what I get from the difference of the two bikes. The gauge cluster. I know a lot of people throughout the history of the ZX6R have never really been a fan of this gauge cluster. I had the same gauge cluster on my 03 Ninja 636 before I owned my CBR. That was my first 600cc bike. Honestly, I like the look of it, but the digital tack it kind of throws you off a little bit. Obviously, I mean, once you get used to it, you don't even notice it. But I do prefer the analog tack that my CBR had as opposed to this digital tack. If it was more like maybe the ZX10 tack, like the current ZX10, that tack seems a little bit easier to read. And I have seen mods where people have changed the LEDs inside of it to actually change the color of the tack when it goes through the rev range. At the bottom you'll have green, and then it'll slowly fade to red the higher up you get in the rev range. But I mean, from a stock standpoint, I think the CBR's tach blows this one away, or not even just the tach, the gauge cluster. What I do like is the fact that the 636 comes with a lap timer built into the gauge cluster, which I really like. My CBR didn't have that. That is a cool little feature, especially if you're going to end up taking this bike to the track. Me, I'm probably not. I would really like to eventually have a track bike, but at the same time, I don't want to get a bike and have it be my only bike and then take that bike to the track and go down on it. So you won't see me on a track until I have the money to get like an 03 CBR or something like that to throw some race fairings on it and take it out and not have to worry if I thrash it. Fuck, I can't go to the track, but hey, I can still ride. So that's kind of where I am with that. Styling. To me, if you look at Super Sports and you compare the two bikes, the 03 CBR looked exactly the same on in 05 as it did in 03. So you can actually do a pretty accurate comparison styling wise, because although they might not have been the same exact year, they were the same styling those years that they came out. So to me, when you look at the two bikes for that year, they were probably the furthest apart styling wise. Like I was saying before, my CBR had a lot of sharp edges. It was very straightforward to the point. This bike is very rounded. It's very aerodynamic. It's completely different from my CBR. And honestly, looks wise, to me, it's really a toss-up, and that's surprising because I've always loved this year's 636, but at the same time, that 03 CBR, the 03 to 06 CBRs are probably my favorite bike ever. Like my favorite styling of a motorcycle ever. But ever since I got this one, it's just like, the more I look at it, I'm like, holy shit, that thing looks mean. And it's really kind of up in the air for me. If I had to, I think I would give the edge to the CBR, just because I like the sharp lines. I love the third eye between the two headlights. I love that. I was actually telling my buddy today, whenever I picked it up from his garage, I think that's the one thing that I wish this bike had. I love the third eye on motorcycles. Just gives a little accent. But yeah, styling, I think I would give a slight edge to the CBR. Maybe that's because that was my first love, I don't know. But regardless, they're both absolutely beautiful bikes. Gas mileage, I will have to let you know on that one after I run through this first tank. So far, I've gone 55 miles on this tank, but I don't even know what I was going to say. But basically, I've gone 55 miles on this tank. My CBR, I used to average about, if I went straight highway, I could eke out 145 miles. But if I'm doing a lot of like back and forth to work, like in New Orleans, I would probably end up at about 120. I mean, that's a lot of pulling off the line, a lot of revving, a lot of getting on the highway, getting off the highway. So I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, at the end of the day, I was still averaging in the 30s gas mileage wise, which isn't too bad for something that'll go 170 miles an hour. But yeah, the one thing, the big thing that makes me like the CBR's gauge cluster more than the Ninjas is the fact that it has, the CBR has the gas gauge. And that's a big thing for me. I really can't stand the fact that I have to look at a little dot, wait for a little light to pop up to know that my gas is getting low. I don't like that. I like being able to know and just kind of see it. I mean, obviously, once I get used to the miles, I'll know from that. But I mean, having a gas gauge is nice. So yeah, that's really it. I mean, comparison-wise, they're both amazing bikes. In my opinion, CBR gives you a lot Gives you a little bit more of the high-end screamy exhaust and ripping you off your seat slightly than the 636, but the 636 also gives you a lot more torque in the low end, which is very nice, very, very nice. And we are going to park this mofo. But yeah, guys, that's really it. Hope you guys enjoyed the first actual vlog on Phoenix. And I hope you guys are ready for many, many more to come, because I am definitely excited about it. But yeah, we'll catch you guys on Thursday. Hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe. And I'm back, baby. Have a good one, guys. Peace.